Splatoon has been a big thing with Nintendo ever since the original came out on the Wii U, and Splatoon 2 is without a doubt one of the most highly anticipated Nintendo Switch titles of the year. Now that it's been released for almost a week now, there's a lot of talk going around the net, a lot of good, some bad, some misconceptions about Splatoon 2 actually just being a port of Splatoon 1, but I've had time to completely go through the story mode, go through a lot of multiplayer, and I'm ready to do a review. So here is my review of Splatoon 2 for the Nintendo Switch. Splatoon 2 takes place 2 years after the events of Splatoon 1. The Great Zapfish disappears once again, along with Callie, one of the Squid Sisters, the musical group that performed all of the news updates in Splatoon 1. You are recruited by Marie, the other Squid Sister, to go after the Octarian threat and rescue both the Great Zapfish and Callie at the same time. Now, there's something to be said about the story aspect of Splatoon 2. There is a fairly lengthy story campaign, which I am very thankful for. I wasn't really looking forward to getting a multiplayer-only game, but there's so much that you really are left in the dark about. And from what I've heard, it was the same in Splatoon 1. You're thrown into this world with humanoid squids and octopuses, and you're basically given the Octarian threat has kidnapped the Zapfish and Callie. Go rescue them. There is virtually no world building in the tutorial or in general. There's just this big, I have no idea of the backstory, and I want to know the backstory. Granted, after the Splatoon anime launches, things will probably be a lot more clear, but from a story perspective, there's just so much you're kept in the dark about. In terms of gameplay, Splatoon 2 is a third-person shooting game with a large focus on online multiplayer and cooperative play. Granted, the story mode also has some puzzle and platforming elements. Overall, third-person shooter. Now, before we get on to the game modes and gameplay, a lot of people are going around, and this has been going on since the game was announced, claiming that Splatoon 2 is nothing more than a port of Splatoon 1 with a few things added in. So we're going to start by talking about what's different between Splatoon 1 and Splatoon 2. So, to list things that are new, the single player campaign, which, as I said earlier, takes place 2 years after the events of Splatoon 1. 6 new weapon types and 3 new sub-weapon types. A feature that allows gear to be ordered by viewing player gear. Salmon Run, the new horde mode that is completely separate in its own kind of section of the game from the main multiplayer mode. League Battles, which is a new deathmatch type mode. And local multiplayer is available for up to 8 different players. And aside from that, just revamped, newly added stages, gear sets, styles to choose from, the character customization. I view it as there's a new story mode, a fairly lengthy story mode that takes place after the events of Splatoon 1. It's not a port, it's a sequel. Now, as far as game modes, all of them are unlocked from the get-go. When you finish the tutorial, make your character, you have access to story mode where you can go through platforming levels to save Callie and the Great Zapfish. You can go into the lobby to do online multiplayer with people around the net. And you've got Salmon Run, where you can team up with other players and do co-op against large hordes of enemies and bosses. Note that some shops and weapons are only available once you reach a certain level in the lobby, but all of the basic gameplay elements are unlocked from the get-go. Now, each of these modes has a different feel and has different rewards. Story mode feels more like a Mario game where you're going through platforming levels, shooting up and solving puzzles leading up to boss fights, and then going into the next world. It even has its own set of weapons, own set of equipment and upgrades, and can be played to unlock further upgrades for multiplayer. Then we have the lobby, which is very casual but the main scene multiplayer experience, where you can do random games, ranked matches, friend matches, league play, and the list goes on. And Splatoon's flagship fighting game mode returns here, Turf War, which emphasizes a lot more on teamwork to paint the arena rather than to just run around mindlessly shooting and killing everyone. Now, if you look at the online community, there is a lot of people that would lead you to believe that this is a brutal competitive game mode, but it's really not. I've done a good 40, 50 matches in Turf War, and even when you lose, you still gain experience towards leveling up and unlocking new weapons. So even when I do badly or when my team does badly, it's just so hard to get mad at the game. It just feels so casual and fun. Now we have Salmon Run, which is more on the casual side because you're teaming up with other players instead of fighting other players. And it's kind of like a mix between Horde mode and Capture the Flag. You're taking on all these waves of enemies, and then bosses that drop these eggs that you have to go capture and take back to your base. So just imagine it, as I just said, Horde mode with a little bit of Capture the Flag thrown into the mix. And it also has its own reward system in the form of tickets that can then be used to gain specific perks in the main multiplayer mode, like double experience for 20 battles. And now let's get away from the game mode and actually talk about how to play the game for all of you that are like me and are first being introduced to Splatoon through Splatoon 2. Your arsenal when you're running around a stage is your weapon, which is your gun, and your bombs. Both of these use neon colored ink, the same color as your team, to damage enemies and literally paint the map around you. The ink that is being painted all around the map is also important for you because you can dive into it, going underground, easily being able to have cover and escape from a bad situation if you get surrounded by the other team, and it's also used to refill your ammo. There are no ammo drops in Splatoon, so diving into the ink is the only way to refill your ammo supply. Now let's talk about the online mode. Across Reddit and a bunch of other communities, I've seen a lot of complaints about it, a lot of nitpicks, so here's my experience. Across 40 to 50 different matches, I've received no connection problems, no disconnects, so everything is really stable. The only thing I have a problem with is Salmon Run. Granted, Salmon Run is a really fun game mode to do, but it's on a schedule. Nintendo made it so that Salmon Run is only available to play during set intervals each day. It's about 12 hours a day, and it's not always the same 12 hours. So you go and pop in Splatoon 2, and you can play Salmon Run if it's between 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. If it's 7 or 8 p.m., you have to go to the lobby and do regular stuff. And this is the only problem. Why is it only available during set intervals of the day? Why don't you just make this game mode all day, every day, just like the other game modes? Instead of having players literally schedule when they're going to be playing Splatoon 2 instead of just playing when they have some spare time. It's just a nitpick of mine, and it's just unnecessary. Now to finish up this section, let's talk about length. If you've been reading other reviews, length of the story mode is a little confusing. I read IGN's review and they said that the single player campaign lasts about 6 hours at best, and I really disagree with that. When I was playing through the game, I was mostly doing single player and doing a few matches of multiplayer on the side when I got through each world. When I finally finished the story mode, I had been playing the game for about 15 hours, and I would imagine that less than 2 of those hours were in multiplayer. Maybe it's because I'm new to Splatoon, but the story mode easily took me 10 to 12 hours to complete. That's not including replaying to get all the collectibles and to unlock all of the hero gear. That's just one straight, go from this level to this level to this level, not caring if you collect all the collectibles anymore, just finishing the levels to see the story ended. Now let's talk about presentation. Overall, the graphics look great. In TV mode, they look flawless. In handheld mode, there are very few jagged edges around the character models. Everything looks colorful, everything looks really detailed, and it should be noted that Splatoon 2 has a lot more detail in its character models than the models from Splatoon 1. Just everything about the graphics is great. Performance is also great. The load times are really short, and the frame rate is solid and perfect. When you're in the hub world, it's a solid 30 frames per second, and when you're in gameplay, it is a solid 60 frames per second. Across the 20 some hours I've played the game so far, I have never seen the frames drop even once. Really amazing optimization. Now let's talk about battery life. I didn't really have high expectations. This is a 3D game. This is a pretty in-depth shooting game, and it's something that's meant to be played with Wi-Fi pretty much all the time. So here are my times from 100% to 0%. With maximum brightness with Wi-Fi on, 2 hours and 51 minutes. Maximum brightness with the Wi-Fi off, 3 hours and 5 minutes. Low brightness with the Wi-Fi on, 3 hours and 28 minutes. And low brightness with the Wi-Fi off, 3 hours and 37 minutes. Which, this isn't bad. I mean, it's not great, but it's not bad. It's no Breath of the Wild, but it's also no Disgaea 5. In conclusion, Splatoon 2 is every bit what Splatoon 1 was and more, from the lengthy story campaign to the pretty much perfect optimization. Granted, the story doesn't really explain much of the lore to you, and Salmon Run being on a schedule is a pretty big downer, but they are mere scratches on an otherwise great third-person shooter for the entire family. Reviews to Go rates Splatoon 2 an 8 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to reach out below or head to the website at www.reviewstogo.com.